Hello,
Hey Sahil.
how you doing?
Hey, can you hear me?
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes, perfect. Perfect. How's it going?
I'm all right. Is it echoing in here? I just got
No,
my mic, so the sound is going to
I
get better.
you sound good to me. But oh, now it's echoing.
Because
Fine.
this room is not amazing for sound quality, but
Okay. Oh, oh.
let's just attach this mic and see if it makes a difference. And then we can test the slides as well.
Sure.
Hello?
Hi.
Is the sound better now?
Yeah, slightly. Not too much of a difference, but slightly better, I would say.
Sorry, I had to change my settings. Okay. Is the sound better now?
This is more noticeable.
Sorry?
This is more noticeable.
Okay, excellent. So I'm going to keep the
Yeah.
mic by me. Let me now change the camera. I'm going to see if I can improve the lighting in here. Suddenly, like the lamp stopped working in this room, so I'm hoping that someone comes and they can fix it. Give me a sec with the camera.
No worries.
Dude, this camera is more crisp, but the lighting is worse.
Yes.
Let's try to fix that as well. Let me also share my screen to see if we can test that.
Sahil, you think you could move more facing towards the light, as in so it's
Yeah,
not
I'm actually setting something up, so we're going to get a better
okay.
view. Just give me a sec.
Sure. No worries.
Can you see my screen, by the way?
No, I cannot.
Okay. Let's do this another way. Uh, Luck doesn't work.
कल करके एक बार फिर कर सकता हूँ ना?
अभी मीटिंग चालू होता है तो बाद में करना भी
बाद में करनी चाहिए।
Yeah.
Hopefully it's okay.
I think the visual is better now.
Fantastic, Sahil. I think people are just rolling in now, so probably just give it another 2, 3 minutes and then we'll get started, all right?
Sure. Let me just see about sharing my screen.
Sure.
Do you see it in presentation mode? Like, is it full screen now?
No, I see it in like PPT, like in the editor mode. Yes, now I can see presentation mode.
Now you see it?
Yep,
The slides are changing?
yep.
Okay, we're good.
We're good. We're good. Let's just give it a second and we'll get started shortly. All right, let's get started, Sahil. Sahil, can you hear me? Yeah. All right. I don't think I can hear you, Sahil.
No, I hear you. I'm gonna
Oh,
start.
okay. Yeah. You're clear now. All right, just let me just intro you. So welcome to all the attendees to today's Mentor Hour. My name is Ramiz, and I'm thrilled to have you all here for this special session. At Ignite, we're all about empowering entrepreneurs and innovators and leaders. But today we're focusing on not just building successful businesses, but fulfilling lives. So today's session, I think, personally, is going to be a very powerful one. We're joined with a remarkable mentor, Saahil Mehta. He's a coach, he's an entrepreneur, he's a leadership expert, and he's helps entrepreneurs and ambitious leaders gain clarity and unlock their full potential with zero regrets. He's worked with some top organizations and guided NGOs and nonprofits. But more than just that, Sahil has developed proven systems and tools to help leaders like you simplify decision making, cut through the clutter, and live with more joy, fulfillment, and impact. If throughout this session, please feel free to drop your questions in the chat, and please react, send your emojis, ask questions, and engage. I'm sure Sahil will be happy to answer. So let's dive in. Please, Sahil, please take it away.
Thank you. I checked all the boxes in life for a successful life. I was living in a 6-bedroom villa, married with 2 kids, traveling around the world, driving a Porsche, having good health, and I was running businesses that were generating more income than I was spending. But even with all of that, I wasn't fulfilled. Like many of you, I was frustrated for not confronting issues, hoping that they would just go away or change for the better. Like many of you, I was scared at the possible outcome of conversations that I really needed to have. So I just avoided them. And like many of you, I felt stuck for making key decisions because I didn't have clarity on my summits. But one day I asked myself, I said, Sahil, do you want to continue living this life of regret, which is only going to amplify over time? Or do you want to live a life of peace? The choice, as always, is yours. In 2016, during spring, I flew out to a retreat with some fellow entrepreneurs, and we all agreed on 2 words. Those 2 words were no judgment. All of a sudden, I felt this huge weight lifted off my shoulders. I didn't have to pretend to be someone that I'm not. I didn't have to be a people pleaser, and I could just be me. Now, over the next 4 days, I can only describe it as being euphoric and liberating. And as I'm on my way back, it hit me that if this is the man who I am, then who is this man that I'm going back to? This man who has a fear of judgment. So over the next few years, because this judgment had created clutter all throughout my life, whether it was mind, body, relationships, or my environment. So over the next 5 years, I started to identify this clutter. Basically anything that was weighing me down, anything that didn't have any function or purpose in my life. And through trial and error, numerous courses, and the guidance of some of the best coaches and mentors out there, I was able to identify this clutter and break free from it one at a time. Breaking free from this clutter allowed me to develop my framework titled the Break Free Framework, which is now enabling me to run 3 businesses across 2 continents, as well as enjoy life. I enjoy mountaineering, reading, and traveling the world. And this Break Free Framework is an easy to understand yet powerful system that enables leaders like you to scale your summits of success faster so that you can live a zero regret life. Now, instead of feeling frustrated I'm confronting the issues that matter most right away. Now, instead of feeling scared, I invite conversations with the people that matter most to me. Now, instead of feeling stuck, I have a lot more clarity of my summits, hence decision making is easier. I believe that you too can remove this clutter within you and live a zero regret life. Now, over the course of the next 30 minutes, you're going to learn the 3 parts of this very powerful break free framework. The first part is going to enable for you to have more clarity by identifying the summits in your life so that decision making becomes easier. The second part is going to focus on identifying the clutter in your life and then listening to some tools that you can implement to eliminate them from your life so that you can scale again your mountains faster. And part 3 is a very powerful, foolproof mindset that has enabled me and thousands of others entrepreneurs out there to ensure that they're taking one step each and every day so that they get to their summit sooner than later. Now, just doing one of these 3 things is going to guarantee you to move faster towards your summits and become more successful. By doing all 3 of them consistently, wow, you're going to be unstoppable. Now, there's one thing I want to mention from my mentor, Dr. Marshall Goldsmith. Everything that I share with you is going to be very easy to understand, but it's not so easy to implement because it requires courage, it requires discipline, and it requires humility. But I know as entrepreneurs, you have these traits. So it's just a matter of digging deep and finding them. So let's get going with part 1. Part 1 is on clarity, as I mentioned. And I often ask people, what does success mean to you? I get the usual answers. I want to be rich. I go, great. What does that mean? I want to be rich. I want to have money, lots of money. Okay, great. What does that mean? Have you defined it? Have you defined even what rich means? Is it rich in wealth? Is it rich in health? Is it rich in relationships? Is it rich in personal development? What is it? So I find most people that I work with, and including my former self, if I'm being honest, I didn't really have a definition of what success was. And if you don't know where you're going, how will you know that you've got there? Or what are you sacrificing? Or what are the efforts you're putting in? Where is it taking you? So as a mountaineer, having climbed some of the tallest mountains in the world, in our world, we have a concept called the 7 summits, which are the tallest mountains on each summit. So I tell people that I work with, what are your 7 summits? Because success is never just one thing. It's combining all these different elements in your life where all of them are important. And why do I say 7? Because it pushes you to think about the things that are smaller perhaps, but they're still important. Usually the 3 that most people share as their top 3 are health, relationships, and wealth. Again, this is maybe not for everyone's top 3, but this is the majority that I've come across. But if I continue to push you, like I did for myself and for many others, I realized, for example, in my case, that fun and recreation was also an important summit in my life. And if that was missing, even if I had the other 6, I still didn't feel fulfillment, and hence I would have regret in my life. So I encourage you to discover what your 7 summits are that compromise your definition of success. Not what your parents told you, not what your partner tells you, not what the media or society tells you, but your definition. Now, when you look at these 7 summits, I just want you to imagine each of them as a ball. You're juggling. You're juggling these balls. Because you're never just doing one thing only throughout the week or the month. You're juggling all of these 7 balls. Now, some of these balls, you have to imagine them as rubber balls, and some of them are crystal balls. So if you drop a rubber ball, okay, not the end of the world, it can bounce back. And one of the rubber balls, just to be very clear, is wealth. How many times have you heard of people going bankrupt and then coming back even stronger? And an example of a crystal ball, for example, is health. You can ignore your health, but at some point it gets so bad that you have a major illness or a chronic condition, and maybe you're on medication for the rest of your life. That's not something that you want, because if your body's not working for you, you're not going to be as productive and things are going to take a lot longer. So make sure when you define your 7 summits, you identify which ones are rubber balls and which ones are crystal balls as you're juggling them in life. Now, what I'm going to focus on in the next section are the 2 most important crystal balls that I hear from everyone that I work with, which is health and relationships. And my request to each and every one of you is today, not tomorrow, not the day after, but today, for these 2 crystal balls, pick one of them that you're going to take action today. Because many times people put a lot of things on their plate, they get excited. Oh, I heard this speaker, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that. And they write all these notes down, they're pumped up, and then they end up doing very little because they're trying to do too many things at the same time, and then it's just too much effort. So my request to each and every one of you is pick one of the things that you're going to learn from today and apply it today. So let's get going. Part 2, we're now focusing on identifying the clutter. And the focus that I have is on these 2, right? Health and wealth. Health and relationships. And it's all affecting our mental well-being. And the more clarity we have in our minds, the better we are going to be at making decisions. So let's talk about something that people don't usually talk about. I'm not going to talk about the usual stuff like sleep and exercise and food. I'm going to talk about pain. That's right, pain. Pain or suffering is the root of regret. And in my opinion, it's the reason for most of the mental anguish that people have. And that's where you're seeing all these mental health challenges that are occurring. So let me split it again into 2 parts when we're focusing on pain. So the first concept I want to share with all of you is choosing love over pain. Now, as over the years, I've done a lot of retreats in the mountains, and there's something that I see which is very common. And it's common even though I've told the climbers before we start in the induction that, listen, go at your own pace. You don't have to be at the pace of others. But surely enough, on day 1, some of the people who are not as fit or as capable are trying to keep up with those in front of them. Now, maybe it's comparison. Maybe it's competition. Perhaps it's ego. Perhaps it's something else. But for whatever reason, unknowingly, they're trying to keep up with these societal pressures or expectations, but they're disregarding their own rhythm of life. And so when we get to our first break, I take those individuals on the side and I say, hey, I see you're not really enjoying this retreat right now. You're not enjoying climbing the mountain. Let me remind you once again, we have enough people. Go at your pace. It's not about competition. It's about you. And surely enough, after the break, well, by the time we get to the next break, I see them coming with a big smile on their face. And I said, what happened? They said, oh my God, I'm enjoying this so much more. And just to put it in perspective, imagine yourself running on a treadmill and you're running at a speed that is a little bit faster than what you're normally doing. And you're struggling, and every stride that you take is pain. And all you had to do was maybe take it down a notch by 0.5 kilometer per hour or 1 kilometer per hour. And now you're able to go for longer, more consistently, and you start enjoying the run rather than it being constant pain. So start to know your rhythm in life. The best competition is the competition of you versus the former self of you. The best comparison is the comparison of you now versus the former version of you. But know your rhythm in life, because if you have a choice between love and pain. So make sure you pick love. The second concept that I want to introduce to all of you when it comes to mental clutter is our minds are so strong. And I always tell my clients, you don't need enemies because you have yourself. How many of you are still holding on to the pain of something that happened years and years and years ago that you might have done? Something that you're not proud of, something that's still giving you regret. Now, isn't it ironic? Because I'm sure the current version of you, the evolved version of you, if put in that same situation again, wouldn't have done what you did in the past. So if that's the case, why are you still holding on to the pain? Because you know deep in your heart that the current version of you would not do that. And by the way, if the current version of you would still do the same, then you deserve the pain by all means. But if the current version of you would not do it, then why are you holding on to the pain? And I got this profound piece of advice, again, from my mentor, Dr. Marshall Goldsmith, who's one of the top executive coaches in the world. He said, Sahil, every breath is a new you. Just let that settle in. Every breath is a new you. So when he told me that, I realized if I would not do the things I did in the past that were giving me pain, it was time to move forward. So now that we've talked
Sahil,
about mental
I'm sorry to
well-being,
interrupt. Hi, Sahil.
yeah,
Some people are having issues seeing your slides. Do you mind turning it off and on, or stop sharing and resharing?
let me do that. Hold on.
Please.
How's that?
I mean, do you mind turning off and on the screen share function itself because people
Oh, the
cannot
screen share
see?
function. Okay, hold on.
Yes,
Let me.
please.
Okay, is the screen share off?
Yep.
Okay, let me put it back on. Sorry, technology.
Yeah.
Is the presentation on now?
Yep, it's on for me. If you could just drop in the chat if you guys can, if the audience can see it. Yes, working. Thank you, Sahil. Please proceed.
Okay. So to close this, the aha moment that I've had from my recent reflection, which I've mentioned already, and I want to mention it again, is that, and it's something very empowering because it ultimately shows that the choice is yours. You do choose love or do you choose pain? In my case, I choose the path of love because it is, after all, my choice. Now, the next thing I want to talk about, the second part of this in mental well-being, is decluttering relationships. Now, when I talk about decluttering relationships, people usually think, oh, it's you need to get rid of someone in your life. And maybe that's true, but I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about the clutter that has formed between you and someone else that's made you start to shift apart. So I want to introduce you to the concept of a 1 degree shift. Sometimes something is said or something is done, and there's a little wedge between the two of you. And if you imagine a circle with a line and then another line that's just 1 degree away, you think, oh, that's tiny. It's 360 degrees around the circle. 1 degree is so small. But here's the thing, as time goes by and the circle gets bigger, that little gap, it starts to get bigger and bigger. In fact, just to put it in perspective, if you launch a rocket to the moon and you miss by 1 degree, you miss the moon by almost twice its diameter. So it's important to address these people that are important in your life. It could be a parent, it could be a partner, it could be a friend, it could be a child, it could be anyone for that matter. But there's something that's happened where you're not in the same state of relationship as you were before, but you're yearning to get closer. So I'm going to share with you a very, very effective tool that you can start to use to address it so that you don't feel scared about having what in your mind might be a confrontational conversation. So here are the 5 parts to this conversation of the framework. Now, this is something that I've developed and it's something that I use. Use it as you will. You might say, I like 4 of the 5. I'm going to modify the 5th. I'm going to add a 6th. That's completely up to you. But I'm going to give you the foundation that you can build upon. The first is when you're having that important conversation, of course, make sure it's quiet, make sure people are not distracted. But mention to the other person, what is the outcome you wish to achieve? I've had way too many conversations, and I've seen it with my clients as well, where they want to go in one direction, and because they didn't mention what they want the outcome to be, the conversation just went in the other direction, and they're holding their head going, what just happened? So make it clear right from the start so they know what your intention is. The second is, don't be judgmental. Don't make assumptions. Replace that with curiosity. Understand that person's perspective. I mean, I don't know about all of you, but assumptions. What if you got it wrong? If you get that assumption wrong and that person matters in your life, again, that's not going to help you get any closer. So instead of being judgmental, which is so easy, and assuming, which is so easy, and you know you hate it when other people do that to you. So treat others like how you wish to be treated yourself. So be curious. Ask lots of questions. I'm smiling now because it reminds me of a conversation sometimes that I have with my wife, and she goes, Sahil, we've been married for 17 years. You should know these things by now. And I tell her, sweetheart, I don't want to assume because this relationship matters too much to me. So I'd rather ask 1 or 2 extra questions. Is that okay with you? And she can't really argue that point out because she understands it's coming from a place of love. So again, be curious. The third one is listen. Now you might say, yeah, of course I listen. But are you listening to them? Or are you listening to the voice in your head that's interpreting everything that they're saying? And even worse, formulating a response. Let me give you an example. You're boarding a flight, you hear the captain saying, good afternoon, we're flying to the Maldives. The weather there is at 25 degrees. The sky is blue, it's sunny. It's going to take us 2.5 hours to get there. Please make sure you buckle your seats and get ready for the video that's going to explain all the safety. Now, you're thinking, I've heard this many times before. You're probably on your headphones, listening to music, maybe speaking to someone, reading a book, whatever, but you're not really listening. You're just kind of passively listening. And the listening that I'm talking about is more active listening. The pilot announces, hey, out of our 4 engines, 1 has just stopped working. Now, don't be alarmed, we're still going to be fine, but I need you all to follow the following instructions in order to ensure a safe landing. How are you listening now? Those headphones are out, no longer the book, not speaking to anyone. You're giving your 100% attention to every word the pilot is saying because you want to survive. So if the other person matters to you, that's the listening that you owe them. The fourth point is don't do this. You did this. You said that. Because guess what happens when you start pointing? Does it feel comfortable? No. And when you start pointing, the other person is going to do this. And that just closes the conversation. So instead of pointing fingers at the other person, ask them or tell them, when you said this, this is how I felt. When you did that, this is how I felt. So now you're not pointing at them anymore. You're just sharing how you feel as an individual, which they might not agree with, but they can't say, no, that's wrong, because they're your feelings. You own them. And even if it was a misunderstanding or whatever it was, it's your feeling. And so you're bringing it back to you rather than pointing at them. And the fifth and final one is acceptance. Just because someone is not like you or not what you expect them to be. Now just reverse that round a bit. How do you feel when you're not being accepted for who you are? Don't you sometimes think, I wish they just understood me, or they would just accept me for who I am, for all the good things that I am and all the flaws that I have? So the same way, accept the other person, because that's the purest form of love. And there's many times when I have a conversation when someone doesn't accept me, I say, look, I accept you for everything that you are. And I see that you're not accepting me, and that's okay. I hope that one day you can accept me the same way that I accept you, because that's what will make this relationship more powerful, more beautiful, whatever it is that you're looking for in that relationship. Because an expectation means, I don't think you're good enough. You need to be like that, and then you'll be better. So again, the 5 points outline what you wish to achieve in the conversation. Be curious and don't be making assumptions or judgmental. Listen to them. Don't point fingers, and be accepting of them. And here's the thing, I know in these conversations, sometimes things get said, things get done. Maybe you're not as patient and your blood starts boiling and you feel your hair standing up on the back of your neck, or you feel this tingling, you know you're just about to burst. That's when you time out, you take a pause. And I'm going to share with you what my amazing coach shared with me. Generally, the horse rider, you're telling a horse, go fast, go slow, turn left, turn right, jump, stop. But when your emotions start to go crazy, when they start to really go wild, you transition from the horse rider to the horse. Now, all of a sudden, you're a wild animal. You can't control your actions. And in many cases, that ends up with something that is said or done where you go, oh, I wish I didn't say that. I wish I didn't do that. So rather than having that regret, time out and do whatever it takes to transition back to the horse rider. It's okay to be angry or upset, but you have a choice between being reactive or responding. A reaction you may not be able to control, but a response you can. And so again, using the example of my wife and I, when I am about to burst, I just go silent. And she's just looking at me going, don't you have anything to say? And then she sees that I'm breathing, because that's my way of getting back to the horse rider. So I'm going to share with you one technique that we can practice now. It's only going to take 30 seconds. It's called box breathing. And it's called box breathing because you're going to breathe in for 3 seconds, hold for 3, breathe out for 3, and then hold for 3 again. So let's just do that together 3 rounds, okay? Breathe in, hold, breathe out, hold. Second box, breathe in, hold, breathe out, hold. Third box, breathe in. Hold. Breathe out. Hold. Now you see this 30-second simple technique already got you a lot calmer. So use this or use whatever else works for you so that you can transition back to the horse rider and have the conversation that you need to have. Now, all of you have one person in your life that you've been avoiding a heart-to-heart with. Take a minute to reflect on who that person is and note it down and make a commitment to yourself that you will get in touch with them this week. And using the tools that you've just learned, you're going to apply them so that you can eliminate that clutter between the two of you and bring that relationship stronger again. Moving on to the third part, this is what I call momentum. Right? It was ensuring that you're taking one step in front of the other every single day. So I'm going to highlight two very simple exercises that you can do. One is daily questions, and this is what I refer to as self-accountability. I have a spreadsheet, and every single day I go in and I have a few questions that I answer. For example, did I do my best to set clear goals today? Did I do my best to achieve these goals today? Did I do my best not to prove I was right with the other person? Because I have this tendency to try to correct other people. And it's not worth it sometimes. So, that's one of my questions. Did I do my best to make the right choices in my meals today? So again, these are questions that I choose that are important for me, but you can ask yourself any set of questions where then you can give yourself a rating out of 1 to 5 rather than it being yes or no. So in each of these questions, 5 is the highest rating, 1 is the lowest rating. That's what I give myself. And I just note it down. And what it does is it brings it front of mind every single day. And then at the end of the week or the end of the month, I can just have a quick look and go, did I do on this month in these areas that are important for me? So ask yourself a set of questions, and please don't make it 30 questions or 20 questions. Keep it simple. Make it 5 questions, 6 questions, 7 questions, something that is manageable, that literally takes you 60 seconds to answer every single day. But it's bringing it front of mind. And the other thing is, the second part is that self-accountability. The other part is, if you can't do that on your own, by the way, have someone hold you accountable. Like my mentor, Dr. Marshall Goldsmith, even though he came up with this concept, he paid someone to call him up every single day at a specific time and ask these questions and record the answers. Imagine the person who developed it, who knows all about it and has done a major in psychology, still knew his weakness, and he had to pay someone to call him every single day. The same way a lot of people tell me, oh, you're so fit, you're active, you do all these things. I say, yeah, I hold people hold me accountable. I pay someone to show up at my doorstep a few times a week so that I make sure I do my yoga or I do my workouts or whatever it might be. So self-accountability is one option. The other is find an accountability partner. Someone who's going to call you up on a frequent basis, and you can decide on that frequency so that you keep elevating and moving towards these summits. Now, one of the questions that I get as a success coach is, Saahil, do you have any tools to help me get started? And the answer is yes. At the end of this session, I'm going to leave you all with a QR code, which gives you my Break Free Foundation course, and it's completely complimentary. Now, by spending time doing this complimentary course, you will learn more tools that we haven't had time to cover today to identify and eliminate clutter in that you can scale your summits of success faster and leave a life of no regret. And this is how you're going to feel, by the way, once you get there. Now, picture a day where you have so much clarity, it allows you to increase your productivity. Picture a day where your family says, I love you for making us a priority again. Picture a day where you are free of clutter and you have peace within. Your summits are waiting for you. What are you waiting for? I'm going to leave this up for just a minute, and then I'd love to open it up for questions. I'll take a minute to go through the chat box as well. Maybe the team at Ignite, you can also circulate this QR code for those who have problems scanning it or those who couldn't make it today.
Absolutely. This session is recorded and we'll push this everywhere.
All right. Okay, I'm just running through the chat box. Okay, this is more around what we couldn't see earlier. Okay. And remember, folks, there's no such thing as a question that's not good. Any question that you're thinking of, the chances are someone else is thinking the same. And any question you ask will benefit the others as well.
Sahil, I got a couple questions from our side privately. So we have someone that's asked, how do you balance long-term vision with short-term decisions in quick decision in high pressure situations?
Great question. So I look at it as a crossroad. You've come to a crossroad, you need to make a decision. I often ask myself, is it taking me up any of the mountains that I've defined as my 7 summits? And then if it's not taking me up any mountain, I say no. There's so many things I say yes to, but here's the thing, when you say yes to something, you're saying no to something else. Like when I say yes to a late night, I'm saying no to my morning ritual. So I have to ask myself, which one is more important for me? Which one is taking up a summit that's more important for me? And so that's the second part of the question, that if you have multiple summits, maybe going right takes you up one summit, going left takes you up another summit. Which one is more important for you? Which is the crystal ball in your life, or which is the higher priority for you? So when you structure it like that and you kind of take it through this very simple system, you then can easily make the decision that is the right decision. Because the last thing you want to do is spend time and resources and energy towards things that are not in line with where you need to get to in the time frame you need to get there.
Fantastic. So Sahil, let's see. We have a question that's coming for younger entrepreneurs. We're often taught to make sacrifices in other areas of our life to achieve success in our career. How do we balance that while maintaining ambition?
See, again, this is such a classic example, especially in the part of the world that we live in, whether it's a Middle Eastern or sub-Indian continent. There's a lot of things that you're expected to do by the community, by the family. Now, one thing that I've learned the hard way, because I've been a people pleaser all my life up until a few years ago, is that by constantly trying to please other people, I was harming myself because I wasn't able to do the things that mattered to me, but out of social norms or expectations from family, I was doing them. But here's something that I want to share with all of you as a flip side. When you become the best version of yourself, there's two big advantages that you gain, even though someone may not like it initially, because then, a parent, for example, is always used to you saying yes. And if you're now not saying yes, because it's not in line with what you need to do, it can hurt them. So there will be some level of pain that someone has to go through as you transition. However, this is what you get on the other side. One, people get to see the authentic you. You're not trying to be someone that you're not. And I always tell people, I would rather someone hate the real me than love the fake me. So one, you're more authentic, but more importantly, when you take care of yourself and you do the things that are right for you, because I know you're all good people, right? So when you're doing things that are right for you, you're a happier individual. Your energy is uplifted. And when you're a better version of yourself, you're a better, and I'm taking my example as a male, I'm a better son, I'm a better father, I'm a better husband, I'm a better boss, I'm a better friend. All the labels that people put on me, I'm a better version of them because I'm a better version of myself. Because the reality is, I struggled with a lot of health, mental and physical, as a result of pleasing others constantly, because it was at the expense of my own health. And so I would push harder, thinking if I run fast on this treadmill, I'll get more done. But I didn't realize I was just digging myself an early grave. Now, luckily for me, I caught it at a younger age where my health and all that was still okay. But had this continued for more years, my guess is I would have been divorced. I would have had some major health issue. My business eventually would have, I don't know what would have happened to my business, but I don't think it would have been as successful as it is now. And I would have been miserable. So short-term gain for long-term pain is not acceptable, but short-term pain for long-term gain is absolutely the way to go.
So, if if that's the answer, we've had another question come in from Rashad Kabara. Rashad says that he loves the idea of clearly defining the outcome of a tough conversation before starting to have it. But can you give us an example of how to frame it so one does not sound intimidating or condescending when setting the outcome of the conversation, especially if the target audience is someone under your authority, like a child or staff member?
Right. I'll give the example of I've got two kids. They're currently aged 11 and 13. And when I have the conversation with them, I say, I'm just using the example of my daughter. I'd say, Alicia, I'm having this conversation because I care about your well-being. I may say certain things that might hurt you, but please understand it's coming from a place of love because I want you to become the best version of yourself. I'm not perfect. As a parent, I'm learning along the way, but because I care, I feel it's important to share this with you. And then I start. So now I've kind of given context that I love you. I've given context that I'm not perfect. I've given context I may make mistakes, but I care. So it's just reiterating all those things and the love. And now when she starts to listen, she's not thinking where, immediately I go in with a fire hose and go, you should not do this, or why did you do that, or something along those lines. Then it just goes sideways. So by creating that little bit of a intention of what you're trying to achieve and acknowledging that you may make mistakes and you might, you don't have the full experience, you've set the tone. And the same can be applied to anyone, whether it's someone who's working for you, someone you're working for, a family member, your employees, anybody.
Saahil, we have another question from Solanji. What was the turning point in your life that made you commit to living a life with no regrets, if you could share?
So as I mentioned in my opening story, it was that trip that I went on with the fellow entrepreneurs. And I want to highlight one point because often people think a transition in life happens when there's pain. Someone had an accident, someone had an illness, someone lost someone went bankrupt, or anything along those lines. And yes, that is a possibility. But in my case, I tasted how beautiful life could be. I tasted better. And I often give this story about my childhood. So I grew up in Belgium and I was always exposed to ice cream from the supermarket. And as a child, oh my God, I loved ice cream. Who doesn't like ice cream? And the flavors we used to get were vanilla, chocolate, strawberry. And if we were really lucky, we got this sandwich of which we had chocolate and vanilla in there. It was like, wow, right? That was mind blowing. And then one day we hear of this ice cream parlor that's opened up in the city center called Haagen-Dazs, and I'm just curious. So I go to this place, and as I walk in, there's these lovely aromas, and then I step further in, and I see all these colors and flavors, and then the person behind the counter says, "Would you like to try it?" And I'm just thinking to myself, "Oh my God, this is heaven!" Right? But once I tasted Haagen-Dazs, I couldn't go back to supermarket ice cream. So when I was on this retreat, when I wasn't pretending to be someone that I'm not, when I just was myself, I felt so free. I felt so liberated. I'm like, I don't want to go back to this person that I was. I like this version of me. And so when I went back, as I mentioned earlier, I started to identify. And some of you might be too young for this, but if you've ever seen these black and white movies, they used to have these prisons where they used to put a ball and chain around the prisoner's legs so that they couldn't escape. I felt like I had a lot of these wrapped around my leg, and I'm just dragging it everywhere I go. Can you imagine carrying all that extra weight everywhere with you? Oh my God, it just takes up so much energy, slows you down. And so that's when I started to identify each of these and I started to break free from them one at a time. But look, I'm going to say this one thing. Everyone assumes that this is how life will be. It'll just keep getting better and better. Overall, that is the case. But like any mountain, a mountain is never straight up. A mountain is with its peaks and its valleys. And as long as you're going through the peaks and valleys, but the overall direction is up, that's great. But you will have to go through some of these valleys, which are dark, in order to get to the peaks. It's not going to be a smooth ride all the way up, and that's okay.
Thank you, Sal. That was a fantastic analogy at the end. Solange's follow-up question asks, how does someone overcome the fear of maybe making the wrong decision and their own choices, and the lack of commitment in those choices?
See, I personally, and maybe you've heard this before, I personally believe there's no such thing as a wrong decision. Once your summits are clear, it will help you to make your decisions much better because you know now you have a system where you can ask, is it taking me up the right summit or not? And even if something happens which is not the desired outcome, you're going to learn something from it. I don't know about all of you, but I feel blessed that I've had so many screw ups in my life across all areas of my life because each and every one of them has taught me a valuable lesson and made me who I am today and continuing to make me into a better and better version of myself. I didn't become and get to where I am because of making right decisions only. I got to where I am because I had so many screw ups along the way, which taught me some very valuable lessons. Now, it's not a failure if you've learned something valuable from it. If you learn nothing and you keep repeating it, then yes, it's a failure. But in my dictionary, it's a learning lesson. And I'd love for each and every one of you to reflect in your life as well. How many mistakes have you made that have taught you such valuable lessons that you are now a much better version of yourself?
Sahil, I believe that's the last question we had, so I think we're just going to close it there, if that's all right with you.
I'm going to leave everyone with one short story, if that's okay.
Yeah, sure.
It's the story of a sailor. A sailor goes to the captain and says, "Captain, can I get my pay today?" And the captain says, "Come tomorrow." So the sailor goes to bed, wakes up the next morning, is all excited, thinking about how he's going to spend his money, goes to the captain and says, "Captain, Captain, can I get my pay today?" The captain looked at him and said, "Hey, didn't I tell you come tomorrow?" So you see, folks, tomorrow never comes. As I mentioned in the beginning, you've learned some valuable tips from this session today. Take one of them and apply it today. Don't say one day, make this day one.
Full of fantastic analogies, Sahil. It's been a phenomenal mentor hour, and I think personally, I'm going to walk away with a lot to reflect on. For anyone watching in the audience, I'm sure Sahil's given a lot of value to us just in this short mentor hour. And if you'd like to speak to him further, you can book sessions with him on the Ignite platform. Just to get some more personalized mentor sessions. Coming up, we look forward to seeing all of you at our future mentor hours. I'm going to drop a feedback form in the chat, so please let us know your feedback on this session so we can improve our future sessions. I hope to see you at future events, and I would also just like to push in that Ignite has launched its challenges. So if you feel that you are if you feel like your product, solution, or startup is worth pushing to the forefront of our digital enablement challenge, so please feel free to apply on Ignite challenges. We have that live as well. Lastly, thank you, Sahil. Thank you to the audience for attending. On behalf of Ignite, thank you all for being part of today's session. We wish you clarity, success, and most importantly, a life with zero regrets. See you next time, everyone.
Thank you, everyone. Have a great day.
Bye.